Hello, welcome to handsonerp.com. This is Hassan Mir. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about Introduction to Subledger Accounting Module, also known as SLA. Let's start with the basics. Accounting information is created in different modules in Oracle eBusiness Suite and is sent over to General Ledger. Why is it sent over to General Ledger module? Because financial reports are run from General Ledger module, and financial reports display all this accounting information that has been sent over to General Ledger from different modules. Examples of financial reports are income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statements. And most of these reports are reviewed by the stakeholders like management, owners, stockholders, etc. And these reports tells you the health of the company. Okay, so this is the flow. Business event takes place. Then you enter a transaction in the system representing that business event. As a result, accounting is created, and finally accounting is sent over to General Ledger module. Now the business event basically takes place outside the system. Okay, for example, you purchase something, you by a phone call or through a website or by physically going to the vendor's retail shop, etc. So the business event took place outside your system or Oracle applications. Now at some point a transaction would be entered in Oracle applications, and that transaction would represent the business event, and that's the only way the application would know that business event has taken place. So transactions are entered in different modules. For example, in payables, you would enter invoices that has been sent over by the vendor to you, and in accounts receivable, you would enter the invoices that you are sending to customers, etc., etc. So different module would register different business events by means of a transaction. Okay, so this is the first interaction with Oracle application at this level, the transaction level. Now when you enter the transaction, then accounting would be created based on that transaction. For example, when you enter an invoice, expense account is debited and accounts payable account is credited, which means your liability has increased and your expense has increased as well. So this is just an example. Each transaction would result into different accounting or no accounting. It all depends on what kind of transaction it is. Now again, at the last step, the transaction would be sent over to General Ledger, as we have discussed this before. Now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to point out differences between 11i and release 12, and that's the best way to understand the concept of SLA module, because that is something new in release 12. So in release 11i, what used to happen is, let me go back. So this flow that I've shown you is basically, I want to tell you what used to happen in release 11i, which was a previous release than release 12. When the system would reach this third step, like where I'm saying accounting is created in respective module. So here, this flow I'm talking about strictly for release 11i. Okay, so you enter the transaction in respective module, wherever the transaction belongs to, and the accounting that will be created would also reside in that particular module. For example, if you enter an invoice in accounts payable, the accounting would be created in accounts payable, and finally the accounting would be sent over to General Ledger from accounts payable module. So look at this diagram here. These are all different modules. Okay, these dot is representing all the remaining modules in the system. Transactions are residing in the module, and accounting is also residing in the module. And once the accounting is created, you're going to run the transfer to GL program from each of these modules, and accounting information would be transferred to General Ledger. Okay, now look at some drawbacks of this concept. Okay, the concept of accounting being residing in the modules and then being sent over to general ledger. Like each module has its own implementation of transfer to GL program. Okay, the best example is accounts receivable system. Here the transfer to GL program was very different than any other module. It was not even a program, it was a form. Okay, a screen, and screen you would tell different parameters and it's gonna run a transfer to GL. As a result, you will not be able to even schedule this program to run automatically because it's not even a program, it was just a form or screen. In payables, it was a proper transfer to GL program. You can schedule it if you like. Now each module has its own transfer to GL program. It would take different parameters, right? So if one user is using 3 different systems, they have to learn to run transfer to GL program in 3 different ways. Okay, and that creates inconsistency and not a very good user experience. Now other drawbacks are accounting to transaction tieback was inconsistent throughout across different modules. Now what happens is when accounting is created from a transaction, it's sent over to general ledger, and user in general ledger usually have an ability to drill down from the accounting information back to the transaction. But each module which would create its own accounting, and the tieback from accounting to transaction is not consistent from across modules. Some module would provide a limited tieback. For example, if you want to go from accounting information back to the actual transaction, in some modules you would be able to do that very easily. In some module you don't have enough detail at the accounting level to let you go back to the transaction level. So the tieback was very inconsistent because each module has its own accounting engine to create the accounting. Okay, so here you could see inconsistencies across modules. Some module would create detailed accounting, while other modules would create summary accounting or not very detailed accounting, not enough to give you enough information where the actual accounting is coming from. So, and in some module the tieback was not even possible. Once the accounting is created, you would not even be able to go back to the transaction. Okay, now other problems in release 11i was no central repository was present for inquiry and reporting on accounting. As you already know that accounting would reside in each of the module, so there was no central place where user could go and view all the accounting before it was sent over to general ledger in its raw form by having one window just to see all the raw accounting created, or a central place to run reports on single repository of accounting. If you want to do inquiry on accounting created by payables, you would have to log into payables and run its own program. If you want to see accounting created by accounts receivable, you would have to go into account receivable and run its own inquiry and program and reports available for viewing the accounting. Of course, we're talking about before the accounting is sent over to general ledger. Once it's sent over to general ledger, then of course you can run general ledger reports, but we are talking about before the accounting is converted into general ledger journals. Okay, in release 12 most of these problems were fixed, and thanks to the SLA modules which sits in the center now. Okay, Subledger accounting module. Now what happens is when the transactions are entered in Subledger in different modules, accounting is not really created in the modules. Okay, the event is sent over to the SLA module. So simply accounts payable module will tell the SLA that invoice has been entered and these are the details. Now the accounting would be actually created by the SLA module on behalf of all the modules in Oracle applications. Whichever modules are capable of generating accounting, SLA would create accounting for all those modules. So no accounting would be created outside SLA. Okay, so accounting would be created by SLA and it would reside in SLA, and then it would be sent over to general ledger from SLA. Okay, now SLA module is new feature in release 12. Okay, now events are passed over to SLA. Now accounting information is not being sent over to SLA because it doesn't even exist. Transactions are entered. Now simply payable is going to send over the event information to SLA saying that this invoice has been entered and these are the details for the invoice. Okay, so event information is sent over to SLA. Just keep that in mind. So this is how it works. This is the module. A transaction is entered in this module, and this module is going to send over the event information, an event to the SLA saying that this event has taken place, and if SLA wants, SLA can extract all the event details from this module because this transaction object is sitting here. So all the transaction details could be extracted by SLA from this module. But based on this event, SLA would create the actual accounting, and finally this accounting would be sent over to general ledger. Now SLA offers centered repository for inquiry and reporting on accounting information. Now if somebody wants to do an inquiry, they can go to SLA screens and view all the accounting. They can run reports from SLA reports to see any accounting details. So now we have a central place where all the accounting information is stored. So this consistent way is now offered for reporting an inquiry. And now there's one single program to do the transfer to GL. Okay, it's called create accounting program. Now that would create accounting as well as do the transfer to GL. Okay, and that program is owned by SLA, even though you can call that program from all different modules that creates accounting, but that program is basically run by SLA, it's owned by SLA. Okay, so now it offers consistency. No matter from which module you are running that program, it will always have the same parameters and same way of running. Okay, so now from AR to GL, if you want to do the transfer, you're going to call the create accounting program, and same program would be called from any other module like accounts payable. Okay, now we have a consistent way of running transfer to GL. You can define how to create accounting from the events. Now I'll have more tutorials on this topic, okay, but very briefly, when you pass over the event to the SLA, you have some rules defined in SLA because you're just passing over the event. Based on the event, accounting would be created, okay, and accounting would be created based on the rules that you have defined. So you transfer the event over. SLA is going to read all the accounting rules that you have defined, and based on those rules, the actual accounting would be created. Okay, so here is the flow that happens in SLA. You send over the events to the SLA module. As you can see in this small diagram here, the module is sending over the event to SLA. Then what happens? How does this accounting generated from this event? You have some set of rules in the system in SLA. Based on these rules, the accounting is generated. Now Oracle comes with some seeded rules, for example, standard accrual and standard cash. Okay, you can create your own rules. It's called conventions. Okay, you can create your custom conventions, or you can modify the seeded rules in the system. Okay, so remember, when you were creating a ledger, you had to choose one of the conventions, and you chose one of the conventions that came seeded with the system. You can define your own convention, and that's a very powerful feature of release 12. I'm going to have more tutorials on that topic. Okay, so now here is what we have. SLA module can create accounting for third-party modules as well. Why? Because all SLA takes as input is the event, and based on the event, SLA could create accounting, of course, with the help of rules that you have defined. So now a custom application can pass events as well to SLA, and you can create you can keep all your accounting engine logic in one module. That would be SLA. Okay, so this is something that you need to understand, how SLA fits with the external world and how SLA fits with the custom apps. Now in 11i, custom application would send accounting directly to general ledger. So again, all the accounting logic would have to reside in custom application. You can still do that in release 12, but the better way is the custom app should pass event to SLA, and the accounting generation logic should reside in SLA. Okay, so here, this was a very brief tutorial on this new module called Subledger Accounting, and I'll create more tutorials to explain you how SLA works, and you will be visiting this create accounting program from different modules like AP and AR. So when you're running that program, you should keep this whole tutorial in mind.